Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. Before we get started today, just want to remind you that one of the ways we keep the lights on around here is subscriptions to Blaze TV. So if you like what I'm doing, if you want to support the show, if you want to make sure that we can keep doing what we're doing, then please head over to blazetv.com/Auron and get $20 off your subscription today. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. It also gives you access to all the other amazing Blaze hosts. You get the behind the scenes features. You get the Frontier magazine if you upgrade to the premium. It's just a fantastic way to get something and to support what we're doing here. So again, head to blazetv.com/Auron. All right, guys. Before I get started with today's show, just with all the other losses and crazy news, I did want to take a second to acknowledge the death of Thomas Lindbergh, who passed from cancer recently. He was the lead singer of At the Gates, which is the band I have behind me. Actually, have had that album up for a week or two. Always loved it. One of the absolute classics, and just an amazing band and an amazing talent. And very sad that he is now gone because just a great musician. So today, wanted to talk to you a little bit about what is going on with Pam Bondi because it is insane. We had a very, very, very important moment after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a moment that can go either way. You can have the entire country fall into absolute chaos, or you can have order restored through proper deployment of the government and government power. And when you do that, you have to be very careful because you don't want people to feel like this is some giant totalitarian response. You want it to be swift and powerful. It needs to bring justice under the legitimacy of law, but you don't want to trigger all of the possible landmines the left is going to lay out for you, not because you're being precious about their feelings, but because that allows you to be more effective as a political actor. This isn't about like, oh, optics for the sake of being no, it's about you have to manage this in a very particular way in order to get what you need done without the left having maximum ability to push back on you. Now, I believe Stephen Miller and JD Vance did a great job about that. I'll talk about it in a second. And then Pam Bondi decided to just smash that into the rocks in one of the stupidest things I have ever seen in my life. We're also going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel and why we are going to be getting Jimmy Kimmel fired today. But before we do, let's hear about Share the Arrows. We spend a lot of time here talking about what's going on in culture and politics, the battles, the noise, the craziness. But here's something different. If you're a woman listening right now, or if there's a woman in your life that you care about, you need to hear this. It's called Share the Arrows, and it's happening on October 11th in Dallas, Texas. It's hosted by Blaze TV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's designed to encourage, equip, and speak truth into the lives of women who are trying to stand firm in this world. This is a day full of worship, teaching, and real conversations. So if you're a woman who's been craving encouragement in biblical truth, this is for you. And if you're a husband or a dad or a brother listening, think about your wife, daughter, or sister who needs this. In a culture that's constantly pulling in the wrong direction, this is a chance to stop, reset, and get grounded in biblical truth. Tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. And yes, VIP options are still available. That's sharethearrows.com. All right. So like I said, we had a very delicate moment. You needed to really thread the needle on this one. You needed to get the tone exactly right when you're responding to what has happened to Charlie Kirk. You need to shut down the leftist terror network. You need to defund them by getting rid of the NGO complex. You need to do all of this using the righteous authority of the state. But you also need to do it in a targeted manner, one which makes it clear what you're going after is the dangerous and violent organization on the left, not just any opposition to the Trump administration or speech or any of those things. And JD Vance was hosting Charlie Kirk's show along and had Stephen Miller on. And JD Vance did a really great job. He spent 90% of the show talking about how much he loved Charlie Kirk, how they were close friends, how Charlie Kirk was responsible for him even being vice president. All of the different people who loved and cared about him, his family, his friends, his coworkers. Most of it was a celebration of Charlie Kirk's life, but sandwiched in that program was J.D. Vance giving two very, very strong speeches about why it is critical to go after the leftist terror network in the United States. He really put an end to this garbage about how it's both sides and both sides have to cool down and there's too much political violence from both sides. He said, nope, this is the left. This is the radical left. We have to end this. So he had very forceful language. But when he brought Stephen Miller on to explain how it needs to get done, Stephen Miller did a great job of being very particular about what they're going to go after, who they're going to go after, why they're going to go after them, why it's legally justified, and why it is morally necessary, right? Just on every level. They hit a home run. They delivered exactly the message that was needed of strong action, but the decisive action is careful and planned and thorough. And just like I said, did a great job. And Stephen Miller even used the point that Charlie Kirk had come to him and had expressed worries about the left's growing violence, the fact that we were allowing the left to continue to organize obviously violent groups like Antifa and BLM in the face of the fact that we know that they are domestic terror groups and we are not allocating the resources necessary to shut them down. And not only did he say this to Stephen Miller privately, he tweeted about this. This is sadly, some of his last tweets were about the rising, assassination culture in the United States and how the left has become very comfortable with political violence. And, I don't think I'm telling Stephen Miller or J.D. Vance anything they don't know. But, the fact that Charlie Kirk was not listened to and that these groups were not cracked down on, plays some role in what happened here. And so I think these guys understand that, and they were saying, we're doing this now. Should have done it before, but we're doing this now. So just really good, like the strong rhetoric, exactly what you needed to hear. And then Pam Bondi decided to just run out and sprint from rake to rake to rake. She would not just shut her mouth for 10 seconds. She had to come out and say the dumbest possible stuff she could, trigger every alarm the left had, give them every piece of ammunition they needed, both rhetorically and legally, in order to step in and stop what needed to be done here, right? What absolutely had to get done. So this is Pam Bondi, ironically, on Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife's podcast, explaining what she thinks needs to get done and how it should be done.
These universities are complicit in allowing conservatives to be harassed on campus. And what happens when you allow a university to harass conservatives and don't expel or don't take an action is what happened last week.
It is. And on a broader level, the anti-Semitism, what's been happening at college campuses.
So anti-Semitism? Like now, really? This is it? This is it? Like, just amazing.
Around this country is disgusting. It's despicable. And we've been fighting that. We've been fighting these universities left and right, and we're not going to stop. There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. I mean, look what happened. Think about Josh Shapiro. What happened to Governor Shapiro? I talked to Josh multiple times. Democrat governor, Jewish. They firebombed his house while his wife and children were sleeping upstairs. It's a miracle.
I want to explain. It might be obvious to you. It probably is, but it's my job to break these things down. So let's do it. Let me explain on every level why this statement is just a rhetorical disaster. Like, just Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So first, of course, we have to bring anti-Semitism into it. That's the message here. It's not about Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. She spends most of the response talking about anti-Semitism. Awesome. I'm glad that there is literally nothing else in America we can talk about. Israel, 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 Israel. I'm so tired of hearing about this country in the Middle East. I don't want to hear about it from anyone. But apparently, we have to hear about it all the time. All the time. No matter what the issue is, the actual issue is anti-Semitism. Second, she goes, okay, we need, there's free speech and there's hate speech. Now, if you were a 15-year-old and this is your first time public speaking, maybe I could forgive this, but even then it would be embarrassing, right? You're taking language that the left has been using for over a decade to censor, to shut down, to destroy conservatives, to get them fired. You do not own this language. This is leftist language. This is even worse somehow than the Dems are the real racists, because the hate speech is entirely 100% a left-coded term. They control its definition, they control its application, and every single thing about it is deep in the culture war that conservatives have been fighting against like 10, 15 years. And yet here she is using exactly verbatim leftist language on this. So, of course, the very first thing that every single liberal who got a hold of this did was slam dunk on Pam Bondi and the Trump administration, saying, see, look, they're all hypocrites. They're all liars. They have no principles. They don't care about anything. They never meant it when we were on the other side of this. It was all garbage the whole time. And now they're going to turn this all into like some totalitarian crackdown. They're going to start, throwing people in jail for speaking out against the Republican Party or, conservatives or whatever. Just an amazing act on her part. Okay. But then it gets even better. This is inside a minute. This is a minute of just a cavalcade of just idiocy, just insane. So then she pivots to on both sides. We're going to shut down hate speech on both sides, conservatives and liberals. Why? Why is that the messaging? You literally just had the vice president say, we're done with both sides. We're done with both sides. This is a leftist problem. The leftists are doing it. We're going after them. And then Pam Bondi gets up and says, actually, no, it's both sides. This is the same administration. What is going on? Do you need me to clear your comms for you? I'll do it for free. I'm not even particularly good at it, but someone needs to be an adult at the White House and tell people to shut up when they're saying something stupid. Why is this woman off page with Stephen Miller and JD Vance? Why isn't there a unified message? Why aren't we practicing this before we go out? You're the Attorney General of the United States. You're the Attorney General of the United States, and you can't say anything that isn't just a regurgitation of left-wing talking points? Now, on top of this, she says it's both sides, and after saying it's both sides, clearly implying that the right has a violence problem and the right has a terrorism problem, after clearly implying that, she then talks about Josh Shapiro's house being burned down. Terrible, terrible. Also, guess who did it? A radical left-wing pro-Palestinian activist. It's a left-wing crime. So now, Pam Bondi sounds like every stupid leftist politician who's been trying to pretend that there's a bunch of right-wing crime by listing crimes, terrorism done by left-wingers. She says it's both sides, clearly implying that the right is doing this, and then she lists Josh Shapiro's house being burned as if a right-winger did it, which they didn't. It's left-wing terrorism. So in one sentence, or in 1 minute, she managed to bring anti-Semitism and make it the only focus of Charlie Kirk being shot. She managed to completely destroy a decade of pushing against hate speech and hate speech laws, the kind that they have in Europe, the kind that the Democrats most assuredly will pass the minute they get back into power. And she pins left-wing terrorism on right-wingers. Who is she working for? Because it is not the conservatives. Like, it's so bad that I am tempted to actually entertain conspiracy theories. Because the only other answer is that the Attorney General of the United States is the stupidest person in politics to have ever walked this earth. Like, it's so bad that you have to assume someone paid her to say these things in order to destroy the ability of the Trump White House, the Trump administration, to get justice for Charlie Kirk. It's like she's a heat-seeking missile to destroy the ability of conservatives, of the right, of the Trump administration in order to solve this problem. Okay? Like, it is horrendous. It is horrendous on every level. But it didn't stop here. Oh no, it got so much better. Because, of course, Pam Bondi is too stupid to not double down. So what else did she say in her very next interview?
That's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed any. That's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed anywhere if you're going to say that. And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at that.
All right, so the first half of this is fine. Yes, you can ask employers to fire people. That is soft power. That is social censure. You're not requiring that of people. It's not the law. You can just say, hey, do you really want someone who talks like this working for you? And a lot of people have done that when it comes to like nurses and firefighters and Secret Service agents who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And good, that's great. The first part of this is fine. The second part is, again, just a crime scene, a rhetorical crime scene. So for, again, about 15 years at this point, 20 years, the left has been trying to make it impossible for conservatives to own a business. Bake the cake, right? We all know about the Masterpiece Cake Shop, the number of times this poor man has had to go to court in order to defend his right not to bake the cake for a gay couple. This has been the rallying cry of conservatives, again, for decades. And yet here we are with Pam Bondi saying, actually, even though we, the right, have been bringing this case to court for years, and we know that actually you lose this case when you try to force him to bake a cake, because he's actually had to do this several times at this point. Now we're going to go and sue people and force people to bake the cake in the other direction. All we wanted was freedom of association. All we wanted was the ability to decide who we associate with, whether we hire them, whether we serve them, whether we make something for them. That's all the right has been asking for. And Pam Bondi's like, that's great. Throw it in the trash. Throw it in the trash. Because really, I don't know what I'm doing. She's incompetent. Clearly. She is clearly incompetent. Even if she can do the job, she can't talk. So stop putting her in front of cameras. But I am doubtful that she can even do the job. But again, it gets even worse. Because then Pam Bondi comes out and tries to double down and say, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. Well, yes, of course, threatening violence is a crime. So why didn't you just say we're going to go after threats of violence? Why didn't you just say that simple thing, the thing that Stephen Miller said, the same thing that J.D. Vance said? Why are you doubling down? Why don't you just say, look, I said the wrong thing there. I should have said threats of violence. I didn't mean hate speech the way the left uses it. Simple, easy, done. Disaster over. They hit you for a day because you slipped up and you said the wrong word, and you move forward. But no, Pam Bondi says, no, I'm standing on this. It's hate speech. And I'm going to redefine hate speech from what the left means to what I meant by it. No, it never works. The same reason it doesn't work with racism or sexism or anything else. The left owns these terms. You do not own the terms. Do not use newspeak. Do not use the propaganda terms of the left. You do not own them. You are not turning them around. Okay? You just look like an idiot. You look like a hypocrite. You hand the Democrats a weapon to destroy the entire effort to take out the left-wing terror network before it even starts. First play of the game, Pam Bondi runs out of the end zone and immediately spikes the football on like the 3-yard line to make it as hard as possible to finish the drive. That's basically what happened here. I don't know. I don't know if she's like actually malicious or just this stupid, but I do not care. She needs to be removed. Pam Bondi is not up to the task. It has been clear she is nothing but a attention seeker. She has the entire Epstein thing, from like creating this like entirely false press conference and bringing conservative influences there and then handing out a file of things everybody already knew, and then like turning around and pretending she had the Epstein files on her desk and then didn't have the Epstein files. There weren't any Epstein files. And now this on top of all of it, like, she's just an idiot. She's an idiot. She has to be fired. She has to be fired. These are real hours. Okay, these are real end of the empire hours right now. The country is at a tipping point, a turning point, since everyone is making the pun. The country is in a dire situation and it needs steely-eyed, razor-sharp leadership. And instead we have Pam Bondi. It's insane. It's insane that this woman is anywhere near power, that she's being put in front of microphones, and after every mess up she's had, she's continuing to hold her position. She has to go, because of course it's not just about these press conferences. She's going to have to give 1,000 more if the administration actually does its job. And she's going to have to talk about the people she's arresting and why. And she's going to sound like an idiot because she doesn't know how to use the language correctly. It matters how you say things. Rhetoric matters in these cases because you also need the criminal convictions to stick. You need to get through a bunch of obstructionist judges. You have to cross every T and dot every I. You need to be pitch perfect, and even then you might fail. But Pam Bondi cannot do that. She is not up for the job. Maybe she's a really nice lady. She needs to go home and be a really, really nice lady somewhere else because she cannot do this job. Now, of course, she wasn't the first pick for the job. Matt Gaetz was the first pick for the job. And a bunch of Republicans would not confirm him. And isn't that great? Because now we have this mess. Now, put Matt Gaetz in. I don't know. Maybe someone else like Ron DeSantis. You know, he's a lawyer. He's a fighter. I know not everybody loves different aspects of Ron DeSantis. There are things I don't like, but the man is a killer. He is he is a next level autist. He is an excellent executioner of policy. He knows how to get this kind of stuff done. So, he's term limited in Florida. Whatever. Like, just put someone competent in the job, but get rid of this. This is insane. We don't have time for this. We do not have time for this. The need to make these RICO cases, to go after like Soros funded networks, all this stuff, it is going to be an impossible climb for the most talented and intelligent people. And she is very clearly neither of those things. So get someone who is. She cannot do the job. She needs to be replaced. End of story. All right. So that said, there are other issues related to Charlie Kirk's assassination that I wanted to bring up. Oh, and I want to say one more thing. Sorry. I forgot. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about here. Obviously, the anti-Semitism stuff is ridiculous. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We don't want violence against Jewish people on campus, of course. But it is very clear that the Trump administration has made this a priority above other people who are far more supportive of the Trump administration, like white Christians on campus, who are regularly discriminated against. Now, they're finally started to crack down on some of that, but only after the anti-Semitism stuff. And it kind of sends signals to people of who actually matters to the Trump administration. Now, I'll say this. There's been a lot of speculation after the death of Charlie Kirk that is just wild, right? There's been people saying, oh, well, Israel killed Charlie Kirk because he was starting to disagree with them. Very stupid. Very stupid. Even Nick Fuentes has now come out and said, this is a stupid theory, which is really funny watching all of Nick Fuentes' followers turn on him for pointing out how dumb this is. Charlie Kirk loved Israel. And even if he was having some doubts, and from what I can tell, he really was having some doubts about blindly supporting Israel, he very obviously was still a huge cheerleader for the country. And however you feel about that, the idea that they then decided to gun him down because he said, nah, Tucker Carlson can come to my event. Like, come on, they're going to shoot him, but not Tucker Carlson. I mean, just have a brain for half a second. Now, that said, I can understand why people are concerned about Israel's influence in the United States, because we see the kind of language that Bondi started with, to the point of even talking about a Jewish politician's house being burned down and trying to pretend it was right-wingers when it was left-wingers. Like, that's insane. So I get it. I get why you're concerned. And I am also concerned, I'm going to be honest, that there are some elements inside the Trump administration they're going to try to use this not to crack down on a wider left-wing terrorist network, but to just silence criticism of Israel. A lot of people got very angry because Tucker Carlson did his own kind of tribute to Charlie Kirk last night. And the vast majority of it had nothing to do with Israel, but he did express that he had gone on stage with, Charlie Kirk at his latest event, or one of his latest events, and that Charlie Kirk got a lot of pushback for putting guys like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith on stage so they could discuss and debate the issues. I don't think Charlie Kirk had abandoned his support of Israel. I don't think he was secretly becoming anti-Israel. I just think he had these guys who he had known for a decade at least, and that he was friends with, and he said, look, they might have changed their mind on this, but these are still my friends. They're good people. I don't agree with them on everything, but I'm going to talk through the issue with them. And and a lot of his donors got very angry with him about that. Now, I don't know all the inside baseball. I've heard it from a number of people who are close to the situation. I tend to believe that is true. It's hard to actually not believe it's true, having the much smaller platform I have, and just the mild criticism I have had of Israel, the amount of pushback I have received, the amount of desperate people coming at me, attacking me, lying about me, trying to destroy my life, just for my little platform, and the amount of the amount of some criticism I have had. It is not hard to imagine Charlie Kirk getting major blowback for this and being worried about it. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, no, of course he wasn't worried. This is all just a lie. Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly's now obsessed with attacking Israel. No, she's not. What are you talking about? You look like a complete idiot when you say stuff like that. So I think there's two things that could be true at the same time. I don't think Israel did this. I don't think that guys like J.D. Vance are obsessed with making this about Israel. But there are some people in the Republican Party that are. There are clearly some people. Now, Pam Bondi might have just fallen into this rhetoric because it's just what dumb Republicans say when they don't know what else to say. They know one thing you're allowed to talk about is that hating Jews is bad. So that might have just been the whole answer to that. But it is concerning. She is the Attorney General. She is the one spearheading these efforts. So I want to make it clear. I don't think Israel was involved in this. I think it's stupid to believe Israel was involved in this. I think it's very clear who was involved in this. And I think, honestly, if you're trying to pin this on Israel, you're just ultimately running cover for the actual leftist terror network in the United States that's trying to murder you and your kids. And that you're not doing anyone any service by that. However, I also understand why people are concerned that some portion of the Republican Party is going to use this basically just to be all about Israel. And in that case, I agree with you. I am concerned that will be the case. I don't think that, some J.D. Vance and a lot of these guys, I don't think that they're pushing it, but there is at some level people pushing this. And so I think both of these things can be true. It's stupid to blame this on Israel, but also, yeah, it's totally believable that actually a lot of people were pressuring Charlie Kirk for, having some questions about wars in the Middle East. And do we really need to send a lot of money to Israel? And even if he loved the country, saying, okay, I love this country, I support this country, but it's ultimately not my country. And I want, my troops and my money to defend my country. And that's what young people believe when I talk to them. And I think they're right about this one. Like, I can 100% see that storyline being true. All right. So back to other people being awful about the death of Charlie Kirk. So this is Mike Duncan. If you don't know Mike Duncan, he is a history podcaster. He has produced probably my favorite history or just favorite podcast ever, which is the History of Rome. He also had the Revolutions podcast, which was really good. He wrote a couple books on a few different figures, Storm Before the Storm, and on the Roman history and the lead up to Caesar and all this kind of stuff. Does a lot of good work. Did a lot of good work. But Mike Duncan has just always been a terrible lib. He's just been a horrible, ugly leftist, and he says all the dumb things that they normally say. But he really unhinged here, and he says Charlie Kirk was a racist, misogynist bigot who didn't give two S's about free speech. As it's true of the entire MAGA movement, that Kirk happily fought day in and night to advance. So this guy is just a piece of garbage. He's just a horrible, horrible, evil person. And I will just never. I've spent, like I said here, I've probably spent almost 1,000 hours. I've listened to History of Rome through twice. It's like 175 episodes. I've listened to most of his Revolutions podcast. I've read his books. I've learned a lot from Mike Duncan, but I'm done with Mike Duncan. This is just evil. This is evil on every level. And I'm not going to pretend it isn't. This man is an evil person. He's an evil person, and he's never getting a dime from me again. And the fact that he is just completely emotionally incontinent. And we need to talk about what's going on with history podcasters. Some of the best ones, Mike Duncan, Dan Carlin, just the worst leftists imaginable. Just complete disasters. So if you want a good history podcast, you guest friend of the show, Alex Petkus. He's got the I think it's The Weight of Glory or Cost of Glory. Someone correct me in the chat if I got that wrong. But that's a guy who is doing a historical podcast, doing a good job with it. And you don't have to worry about him saying absolutely insane demonic things about murdered conservatives. So just again, sadly, this is a common feeling on the left. The idea that ultimately, that ultimately we can all come together. Like, how do you come together with this? How do you come together with this guy? How do you heal a country when a large percentage of the left feels this way? I'm sorry. I hate to tell you this, but Mike Duncan is not some anomaly. He is representative of, I'd say, roughly half the left at this point. It's still not everybody. There's still plenty of leftists who would not go here, and you can't assume everyone would. However, you can assume that a good chunk of them would. And so when it's just like, oh well, a lot of them are decrying violence. Some of them are decrying violence. A lot of them are doing this. And the only way you fix this is with very, very serious soft power, right? Which is why our next plan here. All right, so this is Jimmy Kimmel, and he decided to do this monologue last night on his show.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA. We hit some new lows over the weekend.
Oh, hold on. The audio is not working for me.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA.
1 minute. Let me fix this real quick. All right. Should work now.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
So Jimmy Kimmel is just a horrific human being, yet again. And he thought that his job was not only, I mean, it would be bad enough to just go out there and, make fun of Donald Trump in the way he's grieving for a friend, right? Like, yeah, I get it. Like in that moment, Donald Trump did not immediately break down and fall apart. He's probably, been asked this question about 1,000 times in the last day, and he is, not focused on giving the most emotional answer every single time. But it's not that he made fun of Donald Trump. It's that he ultimately decided to lie to millions of people. Yeah, I know, like, Jimmy Kimmel's audience isn't a million people right away when he's watching it live, but millions of people will see this clip. This will be the clip that your leftist aunt shows to everybody, right? Like this will be what they show to prove that actually their side's not violent. This is your leftist families and friends. They're going to watch MSNBC and they're going to watch Jimmy Kimmel and nothing else. And they're going to believe this garbage. He lies and says, "Oh, it's a right winger. It's a MAGA guy. That's who murdered him." Now, you of course you have to be like deeply affected by like just the leftist brain rot to believe this. The guy was shacking up with a troon. Like his boyfriend, his girlfriend had a penis. Like that's, yeah. And on top of that, he's carving like, anti-fascist propaganda into his bullets before he shoots Charlie Kirk. He's wearing, Democratic Socialists of America t-shirts. Like this guy's a leftist, very obviously, on every level. And instead, they say, "Oh, well, no, he's a Republican." And the reason they do that is if they don't lie, obviously, then some of the people that they're talking to might come to the revelation, oh, maybe we're the bad guys, actually. Actually, it seems like the people doing violence in the United States are all having the same message. They all have the same beliefs. They all have the same thoughts. They all believe what I believe. Maybe I need to reconsider what I'm doing. Maybe I'm on the wrong team. And that's really difficult. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance there. I think I'm the good guy. I keep saying that the right's the one that's going to murder people. The right's the one that's going to throw people in jail. The right is the one, they're the ones that are ultimately going to crack down and have authoritarianism. Except my side is the one actually shooting people. My side is the one actually murdering people. Like they can't believe that. So Jimmy Kimmel gets up in front of, eventually millions of people and delivers a lie. And obviously, like he's lying, but more importantly, he is covering for left-wing terrorism. Jimmy Kimmel is an accomplice. He is supporting and covering up left-wing terrorism. Jimmy Kimmel is assisting in left-wing terrorism. He's assisting in the violence. He is trying to get more people hurt, more people killed. Like, that is what he is doing here. Very obviously. So, what do we do? We're angry. We're sad about what's happened. So what do? I've got good news. There's a plan. So, today we're getting Jimmy Kimmel fired. That's what we're doing today. All right. Whatever you're doing while you're listening to this, if you can stop and do this now. Okay. we are going to get Jimmy Kimmel canceled. I've already heard that FCC is being pressured because obviously ABC has a license through the FCC, and so putting out these lies, putting out these bald-faced lies, is something that the FCC can attempt to punish. So hopefully that goes through. But we have more options. Okay, we can go after his advertisers. We can go after the networks he's on, right? So first and foremost, he's obviously on ABC. So if you would like to get a message to the ABC network, we have Jake Lloyd Colglazer. I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but he was kind enough to compile a list of contact information and email information. You can get that on my Twitter. I've retweeted it and I posted my Twitter as well. I came up with a list of some of his most recent sponsors. Of course, he has many more, but here are the people we can reach out to, right? First, you can reach out to Ashley Klein at Disney. That's the publicity vice president. She's at ashley.r.klein@disney.com. You can go to people who work for Disney putting on Jimmy Kimmel Live. You can go to Disney itself. Obviously, they own ABC and therefore are helping to support this. You can go, for instance, as he lists here, the shareholder contact, Disney shareholder at computershare.com. Some of the sponsors. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just kind of some basic recent ones I got. I'm sure there'll be more. We can keep going with those. JCPenney, Target, Instacart, Mercedes-Benz, Impossible Foods, PetSmart, Credit Karma, SiriusXM, Dairy Queen, Chime. All of these, we've got their emails. We've got phone numbers in many cases. I have personally tagged every one of these on Twitter to make this known. We need to get him fired. That's going to happen. All right. So we need to go all out. I need people calling. I need people emailing. If you're sitting around playing a video game, turn it off, pivot the chair, open up your social media, open up your email, start calling. This needs to end. There needs to be a real cost. Jimmy Kimmel is not just lying. He's not just spreading false information. He is covering for left-wing terrorism. He is a supporter of left-wing terrorism. He is running cover for left-wing terrorists, and he knows it. Jimmy Kimmel is a malicious liar who is trying to push left-wing terrorism, trying to justify it, trying to misdirect what's happening, lying to millions of people so that they don't know the truth that left-wing terrorists are killing people like Charlie Kirk. So I need you to go after every one of these sponsors and let them know what's going on. Everything's peaceful. Be nice about it. Don't call them up and be a jerk. But it's time to get these people canceled. It's time to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel from the show. He needs to go. He needs to not have the show anymore. He needs to not have a public platform anymore. Jimmy Kimmel needs to be untouchable because of what he's doing. He's a terrorist supporter. He's covering for terror. He's lying about the acts of terrorism in a hope of running cover for these people. So again, Disney, ABC, Jimmy Kimmel Live, JCPenney, Target, Instacart, Mercedes-Benz, Impossible Foods, PetSmart, Credit Karma, SiriusXM, Dairy Queen, and I'm sure there'll be more. We'll add more to the list as it goes, but we need this shut down. Okay, we need this shut down. So we're done. You know, this is we've had enough. Okay, we played the game of free speech. We played the game. We still want free speech, but people who are lying about terrorism in an effort to cover up for terrorists, nope, that's the line. That's the line. Because now you're trying to get people killed. That's it. You're trying to get people killed. If you're covering up terrorism, if you're lying on behalf of terrorists, if you're misleading millions of people in favor of terrorists, then it's time. It's time to get these people taken off the air. Okay? So make sure that you are taking a moment to message these people. I mean, if you can do all three, on social media, email, call, please do. Okay. If you're angry about what's happened to Charlie Kirk, if you're angry about what's happened in this country, if you feel like you don't know, there's nothing you can do, You're powerless. You're not. Okay? You can do this. It's not enough. It's not going to bring Charlie back. It's not going to save the Republic. But it's a start. It's something you can do. We can do this. So we need to. So please get this done and share it. Share it out. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Make sure everyone you know is calling these people. Make sure you're emailing all of them. Okay? Make sure that you are tagging them on social media. Share it with everybody. Share it in your church groups. Share it in your homeschooling groups. Share it in your mom's groups. Share it in your baseball, fantasy football groups. Everywhere you can. Get people contacting these sponsors, Disney. I know this isn't exciting. I know this isn't like the manliest behavior in the world that you like, but like we can't play games with this stuff anymore. And Jimmy Kimmel is a terrible human being who lied about a dead father on air so he could cover for his killers. And we can't stand by. We can't pretend that's okay. All right, guys, we've got a number of super chats here, so I'm going to go ahead and speak with the people. Look at the questions of the people here. Art says, watching most of liberal mainstream media admit hate speech doesn't exist, especially after years of declaring it does, was the only bright spot from Bondi's blunder. Didn't expect to see that on my bingo card. Well, yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and if you can, I guess, melt some of that, then great. Ultimately, I think this was a huge mistake. But yeah, if there is at least at some level leftists who are forced to walk away from their hate speech stuff, then okay. I mean, it's all opportunistic, right? It's all going to come back the minute after they think that they're not going to get in trouble for this. So I don't really believe any of them, if they say, oh, hate speech doesn't exist, I don't believe any of them won't just be back tomorrow doing exactly the same thing the minute they think the coast is clear. So I don't know if that's a lasting win, but yeah, at least hopefully maybe there's some positive aspect there. Matt Grenier says, this administration is so disappointing. Trump agreed with and loves Bondi. They're also still letting in thousands of Indians per month, as if our cities aren't already overrun with these people. Again, yeah, I understand there's, nothing perfect about this. You won't, especially today, are not going to catch me praising, these parts of the administration. Trump I don't think Trump really agreed with her. I think it was more like someone used the phrase hate speech and Trump made a joke back about, yeah, maybe you're hateful, because you're always mean to me. But I haven't heard him be like, yeah, actually, we're just shutting down all hate speech. But that's why you don't introduce the phrase into the conversation in the first place, right? Like the minute you use the left's language, it becomes centered and people are repeating it. It's a rhetorical disaster that just cascades down. Everyone has to answer questions on hate speech, and now they're talking about hate speech, and it's stupid. It's just stupid. It's amateur hour. Let's see here. Jeff says, because the soft elite is unable to use force speedily, challenges that can be met in no other way are allowed to persist until they either burn themselves out or overwhelm the regime. Uncle Sam. Yeah. The lions and the foxes are an archetype I've talked about many times. And that's absolutely correct that ultimately, because your soft power elites, your foxes, are unable to wield force in any effective way, you do see these problems just persist and persist and persist to the point where now our regime, incapable in many ways of using violence, has to entirely use proxies, which is why they love using BLM and Antifa, because these are like a kind of like hard power, but it's hard power they don't totally control. Like they're not uniformed, they're not they're not emblazoned with the seal of the government, and that gives them a certain air of plausible deniability. But at the same time, it also means that these people are not actually directly under control of the elites, and so wielding the mob sounds good for a minute, but like eventually you lose control of them, and that's always the weakness of trying to use these like proxy forces of hard power. Salty Saiyan says, it has been a week since Charlie was murdered, and so far there have been no arrests of prominent libs that incited and continue to incite violence. Yeah, I mean, there is zero argument from me that the Trump administration has not kind of failed at the out of the gate on this. And the worst part, and like I said, the worst part is this. They failed to react seriously to Trump's assassination attempt, the attempt on Trump's life, multiple attempts. They failed to really crack down when that happened. And that is in no small part why Charlie Kirk is dead. The Trump administration, to be frank, was weak. And I don't know if they would have caught Charlie Kirk's killer before Charlie was killed. Had they been cracking down, had they already been sifting the Discord records of every leftist terror cell, every Antifa group, if they had not already cut off funding, if they had not already gone after these, if they had already done this stuff, would Charlie Kirk still be alive? I don't know, but the answer is much closer to yes than no. And so their inaction on this is in no way, in no small part, a contribution to why Charlie Kirk is dead. Now, I say this with a lot of sympathy because ultimately these people, many of them were close friends with Charlie Kirk, and I'm sure that weighs on them. But look, ultimately, you got to get it together. Like, I'm not going to pull my punches on this stuff anymore. Like, the failure of the Trump administration to act here is would be a complete disaster. And I want them. They might be taking a little bit of time because they need to get this right. But man, they better get this one right. They better, because if they don't, the country is in a terrible place. Let's see here. Jeff says, stop hiding your power, Auron, DeSantis, or Schmidt for AG. Make it so. Again, yeah. Eric Schmidt would be another fantastic choice. Obviously, he was the AG for his state, now a senator. Again, just whoever it is, it needs to happen. It needs to happen now. Tony here just with a donation. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Life of Brian says, Auron, I don't understand. I thought it was a hobby horse and not an entirely predictable response for a worthless, corrupt president party government. So let's clarify here, because I've seen some people say this. So if you want to go back and look about when I actually said this, what I said was, I don't want people to pretend that Israel shot Charlie Kirk. This is not about your conspiracy theory about Israel shooting Charlie Kirk. I am fine and have always been fine with people criticizing the American relationship with Israel. I have done so. I have done so to my own detriment. I spent the first few minutes of Tucker Carlson appearance talking about this and why it's a problem. I just asked a question at NatCon, at the heart of an organization that is run by an Israeli national, about why it is so important for us to be obsessed with Israel and being involved with Israel all the time. So if you're now trying to lecture me on like, oh, you never talk about Israel or never criticize Israel, what are you talking about? Like, that's a lie. So why are we doing this? My point was that obsessing about Israel to the point where you will make a conspiracy theory about how Charlie Kirk was murdered by a country he obviously loved and supported very vocally because he had some doubts, it makes you look insane. And if nothing else, it hurts your cause. Because now people who might have listened to you and say, hey, yeah, why are we bombing these countries? Why are we sending so much money to Israel? Why do we have to have a foreign lobby that is so powerful in the US? People who might have listened to you on those very reasonable points here. Oh, and Charlie Kirk was assassinated at the head of a menorah. Like I don't know if you've seen these insane things online where people are like, he was shot in this thing that looks kind of like a menorah. Like when you put that stuff out, you are not helping your cause. You are absolutely hurting your position because you sound like an insane person. Okay. So yes, it is stupid to make your hobby horse the idea that this man was murdered by Israel. It makes you sound dumb. It makes us what people use to then attack people who have reasonable questions about what is going on between the Israel and the United States. So if you actually care, like if you really care, and you don't just use it for edgy cool guy points on the internet, like if you actually care about your country, you want it to be free of foreign influence of all kinds, including Israel's, then maybe try to not look like a raving lunatic every time something happens. Everything is not guys with Jewish space lasers. I'm sorry. Now, that doesn't mean there are not very legitimate questions about Israel, its government, our relationship with it, whether it's healthy for this country. I am up for all of those discussions. And I'm even more than willing to defend people who are pointing out that Charlie Kirk was getting a lot of pressure from donors or others who did not like the fact that he was platforming people like Tucker Carlson over this issue. But I'm sorry, yes, if you are so obsessed with Israel that you see like the Mossad around every corner for every action, including the murder of a guy who loved their country, fought for their country, praised their country relentlessly. If that is what you are doing, yeah, I think it's perfectly reasonable to point out that you are actually a detriment, not an asset, and that your obsession with your hobby horse is hurting you, like probably hurting your soul, but also hurting your cause. So maybe we can just like point out the fact that Charlie Kirk was receiving a lot of pressure on this issue without then saying, and that's why Israel murdered him. Like, come on. Thimplar says, when you're the colony of a foreign country, every issue becomes a tool to fortify the imperial power. Yeah, I mean, again, I like George Washington's explanation better. His warning that ultimately, if you make a nation a favored nation, then what will happen, the natural dynamic inside the country is that it will create divisions and factions that try to fight for power by declaring allegiance or opposition to this country. But ultimately, I hear what you're saying. Like there is an obsession to a level of derangement over Israel. And I don't want to ever talk about it again. I don't want to hear about this country in the Middle East ever again. I want it to be like, Zimbabwe or Madagascar or some country in the middle of Asia that no one cares about and ever thinks about. But obviously we can't do that. And part of it is because Israel goes out of its way to make sure we have to talk about it nonstop, and that many of its allies decide to say that anybody who says, hey, maybe we should be talking about this country all the time, turns around and yells, you're anti-American, you're an anti-Semite. So yeah, like obviously this is a huge problem, and it's one that is intentionally manufactured often by supporters of Israel, but it's also bolstered by haters of Israel who are violating the other action of or the other part of George Washington's farewell address, saying you don't want to have infinite hatred for another country because that will obsess you and that will make you do things to try to hurt that country, even if it hurts you. And I'm seeing a lot of people doing that this week. They're hurting their own cause, their own position, their own people, so they can try to like say something insane about Israel. Again, I don't like our relationship with Israel either. I'm with you on this. But please stop making everyone who agrees with you look like an idiot by running out and saying the stupidest thing imaginable. Matt Gradier says, there also needs to be a conversation on the right about Harmeet Dillon. Yeah. Look, I've heard she's doing good work in her position. This is what people who I believe who are very based have told me. So maybe operationally she's doing a great job. Rhetorically, I am worried. She seems to have some very, 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 well, frankly, leftist opinions on things like civil rights and, anyway, the point is, yes, I share your concern. Florida Henry just here with a donation. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Kruger Weirder says, I've been feeling a lot of hate for these people over the week. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right at all. I can't help it. And I'm so angry. Well, the first thing, of course, to do is to pray. We don't want to let hate fester in our hearts. However, after praying about this, remember that it's okay to be angry. You don't want the anger to turn into hate because all you do is let it fester, but it is okay to be angry. It's right to be angry. These people have done things that should make you angry, but we can do something about that, right? We can take that anger and turn it towards making sure that these people can no longer spew their hate and deceit and lies in, say, service of left-wing terror like Jimmy Kimmel is doing. So you can contact Jimmy Kimmel. You can contact ABC. You can contact Disney. You can go down the list of sponsors. Still got it up right here. So yeah, don't be hateful, but do use that anger and use it for a good cause. Jimmy Kimmel is misleading people and trying to get people hurt. And so you can do something about that. You're right to be angry about it. You don't need to hate him, but there is a justice. There is justice that can be delivered by ensuring that he no longer has the platform to do it. So don't be hateful. Get busy. Get to work. Florida Henry here again. Thank you very much. He says, Cost of Glory and Relevant History podcasts are great. I found Mike Duncan backpacking around the world 10 years ago. So sad. Yeah, again, been a big fan of his work for a long time. I've kind of ignored the fact that he was an awful lib, but can't ignore it anymore. So instead, look up Alex at Cost of Glory, and I'm not familiar with Relevant History, but make sure to check them out. Herb Seasoning says, best Pantera album. Always difficult. Always difficult. A lot of people will look at something like Great Southern Trendkill, and it is, of course, a great album. For me, it's always between Cowboys from Hell and why can I suddenly not remember the Violence? I can't remember the whole. It's an amazing album name. I don't know why all of a sudden I can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, for me, it's always between those two. But love those albums. Wildspeaker says, I'm tired of every conversation being linked back to Sand, New Jersey. There's no other issue right now other than the Visigoths currently sacking Rome. Focus up, people. Yeah, again, I just hate this either way, right? Like I totally, and I get it. Like so many of our politicians and so many public figures are so obsessed with Israel that it's hard not to talk about it. Because if you just oppose this even mildly, these people lose their mind and they make it the center of discussion. So I understand it's to some extent we do have to talk about it, if only because the people who are like so pro-Israel that they want to destroy anyone who even, gives a side eye to Benjamin Netanyahu. Like obviously those people are lunatics. They try to get people fired, canceled, doxxed. Like these people are nuts. So I get it. Like I understand there is some level of attention that has to be paid to this. And the fact that, frankly, Israel obviously does have an undue amount of influence in the United States. And that needs to end. Like AIPAC needs to go. Dual citizenship needs to go. This stuff needs to go. Okay. I don't want to hate Israel. I don't want to love Israel. I don't want to think about Israel. I don't want to do anything with Israel. The end. Okay. That's the goal, to just never talk about Israel again, one way or another. But in order to do that, obviously we have to like kind of root out some of the, the stuff that is forcing it into our public conversation. Bert the Gourd, the fart lord, says women don't virtue signal difficulty impossible. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm sure I could have heard this rhetoric out of men too. Like there are certainly plenty of men, Ted Cruz comes to mind, who would immediately pivot to like this being about anti-Semitism or something. But like it's just a terrible, it's just rhetorically lazy. It's rhetorically lazy. No Curtain says maybe Jimmy Kimmel is still winning Ben Stein's money. I see what you did there, man. I forgot that was a whole show and that he hosted it. Thank you. I'm not sure how to even begin pronouncing that name. Thanks for the stream, Auron. Do you know whether the foundational videos from Amnesis are anywhere on the net? I still miss him after 3 years. 3 odd years. Yeah, so he was actually one of the early NRX like YouTube accounts. Certainly someone who I listened to and even had a discussion with on my channel when I was kind of trying to understand the political theory, Chris Yarvin and everything. They are great videos, but unfortunately, no, he just kind of vanished one day off the internet. All of his stuff, like I was in contact with the guy, and I can't even contact him anymore through any of the channels I used to. So I sadly, no, all the content is gone and all his contacts are gone. So sorry, but yeah, there's not much we can do about that. Herb Seasoning says Bondi and Dillon use civil rights law as their main line of legal power. It makes sense as it has extremely wide latitude of enforcement, but it's a total and complete strategic failure to use it. Yeah, I mean, so obviously you're correct, right? Like this is a weapon. It's a powerful weapon. There's a reason the left has been using it. And your instinct is to pick up the weapon of your enemy and then like use it the other direction. Obviously, as we saw with Pam Bondi, not the best move here rhetorically, but also legally, I think ultimately you're right. we should be looking to dismantle the Civil Rights Department and the Civil Rights Act and not empower it more. That said, it doesn't even seem to be that effective. I mean, ultimately, like I said, I've heard that Dylan is doing good work in her position from people who are very motivated for her to succeed. So I hope that's true, but I do think ultimately it is a mistake, and I think we'll regret it if we continue to try to wield a tool that ultimately we do not actually own. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank everybody for coming on, or well, not for coming on, but for watching. As always, if it's your first time here, please make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, click the bell, notifications, all that stuff, so you know when we're going live, because YouTube will, of course, censor anything right wing at some extent. If you would like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And again, I implore you one more time, if you're listening to this show, please go out and call, email, tag on social media, ABC, Jimmy Kimmel Show, Disney, sponsors like JCPenney, Target, Instacart, Mercedes-Benz, Impossible Foods, PetSmart. Let these people know, okay? I'd like to see Jimmy Kimmel not have a show anymore for his continued attempt to lie about and cover up left-wing terror. So if you can take time to do that as a personal favor, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.